more pain and agony to the everyday person.
Right.
We've got probably 5 stories that really prove that we're in the decline right now.
Yeah, we're going to try to connect the dots and see how it affects us, the everyday person as we muddle through this. So the first one we want to talk about is, of course, the U.S. inflation has topped forecast, cementing odds of a big Fed hike. Now, it didn't rise much. The consumer price, it only was like 0.1.
0.1.
But it was enough to make the Fed still say, more than likely,
I think they expected it to be way down.
I think they did also.
Yeah, and they know it's manipulated. Yeah. So they're like, crap, we're doing everything we can, and it still didn't go down like we thought. So look for more manipulation.
That's what they're saying. It says U.S. consumer prices were resurgent last month, dashing hopes of a slowdown and likely assuring another historical large interest rate hike from the Federal Reserve. The so-called core CPI, which strips out the most volatile food and energy components.
It's not the things we need every day.
No, it's advanced 0.6% from July and 6.3% from a year ago. Said all measures come in above the forecast. The acceleration in inflation, it points to stubbornly high cost of living for Americans, despite some relief at the gas pump. And we've been talking about this, how prices just keep going up.
Yeah, food, as it becomes in short supply, because it will. I get some comments sometimes, still no food shortage, where's the shortage? They're in the mail, bud. Yep. Just hang on. That's going to drive prices up, and that's what's going to keep food on the shelves.
Yeah, well, let's just give a stat. Food cost has increased 11.4% from a year ago, the most since 1979. And if you talk to some of these farmers, they'll tell you firsthand they're losing some of their crops. They're hoping to get subsidies from the government. I just talked to a guy down in Faraday, Louisiana. He was talking about some bean crops. And one guy had put all of his money into the bean crop because he could not afford to do like cotton and corn because it required too much
soybeans.
Yeah, soybeans because it required too much fertilization. And I think he's lost almost all of his crop due to floods, too much rain. And right now, you're right, we don't see it. But in 6 months
and
to
if you listen to my video with Terrell, when you're driving along and it looks like the soybeans are just doing great, the beans in the pods are at like 50% of what they should be. And we're fixing to have massive grain shortages. It's on the way. We're still eating last year's food in these boxes. So keep an eye out, and I hope everybody's been listening and paying attention and has some food, because you're going to beat the stock market with food.
True. Now, electricity prices have rose 15.8% from 2021. That is the most since 1981. Gas prices have fallen, they said, which has been really, really good. But overall shelter cost has increased 0.7% from July and 6.2%. So everything is just climbing. No matter where you look, except for a little bit, I guess, in oil, the gas prices, it's just climbing up.
Yeah, it's like stagflation. Prices are climbing. We've got inflation. We've got higher interest rates, which is kind of crushing the economy. And people are making about the same. Wages are not keeping up with inflation, so it's making everything just kind of stagnant. I can't wait to get into the story about the investors not wanting to. That's going to prove that point. And even around here, people are slowing down. There's people living on credit cards.
They are. But before we go any further, so I would like, Key and I, before we started this video, we're like, well, how about solutions? So we have rising prices right now, and I want to talk in a second, too, about the strikes and how it's affecting. So if these people go on strikes, but what are their solutions that we can do as an everyday person? And just, as a wife and for our family, there's a couple things that I've started implementing in the last year. One, on the gas. I make a list of all the places that I want to go, and I line them out, A, B, C, D, and I try to go in order so that I don't waste a lot of gas going back and forth, because we live a little bit out, so it takes 45 minutes, 20 minutes to get certain places. Another thing, I start keeping receipts, and I'm like, man, this is going up a little bit in price. So the next time I go to the store, I try to get a little bit extra of that, knowing that's probably going to go up. Follow the dots, watch the news, see what's kind of being inflated, and I just think if there's things that we can do to prepare instead of just burying our heads in the sand.
Every little thing. When I need welding rods or any kind of supplies, my helper has to drive past those stores.
Right.
I give him the credit card, and he picks up whatever I need. It saves me a 20-minute trip with diesel fuel and everything else. So just doing little things like that you can really save a lot of money
Right.
because every little thing adds up.
One more thing then, I'll talk about prices. It says, as far as health services go, health insurance has surged a record 24.3% year over year. That is high. And we have nurses now going on strike.
Yeah, see, the nurses are wanting more money. They say they are overworked through the pandemic. And I don't know. I just know we have some soft people on the earth, and I'm not saying that they're not being worked too hard. But aren't they getting compensated for their time?
I don't know.
Through hourly?
I don't know.
They should have had the best year ever the last 2 years.
Well, they've had shortages. And so I talked to an ER doctor one time, and she said there was literally nobody there to help cover her. There used to be like 2, 3 doctors. There would be like 1 or 2. And so they were supposed to spend so much time with a patient. She was having to reduce that time just to see enough of the patients.
So they're saying
the patient
taking
care
away from the patient.
The patient care is going
I
down.
can see that.
Yep. They said that's what's happening now in several different areas. I guess Minnesota's the last one. 15,000 have just walked off yesterday, and they're doing a 3-day strike. So that means for 3 days, these hospitals they have no nurses.
They're bringing in tons of travel nurses. It's going to cost the hospital a ton of money, I'm sure.
And go ahead.
I want to keep an eye on it. That's our health care. Our health care is broken because people don't care about their health, and the government subsidizes everything. So I see this only getting worse.
Yep. The U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics estimates there will be an average of 194,500 job openings for registered nurses through 2030, and that's not that long away. No. Well, let's talk about the other strike, the railroad, and how it's affecting Amtrak, because we've got more strikes, and it's going to affect the freight and commutes.
Yeah, the railroad, they want more money. That's what happens when everything gets so expensive. To be honest with you, my father retired from the Union Pacific after 43 years, I think, and that was a really, really good job. I think it was like before 85 or 83 or something like that. Somewhere in there, it was like really good. And then it's just like everything else. They take away, they get away with doing less benefits, and they just get down to nothing. And that's where a lot of my friends and family that are in the Union Pacific or unions and railroad, they're getting out. And we're not going to have the good people we need to run the freight we need to run.
And to get good services. But it's also affecting now commute in inner cities, because it's affecting Amtrak. Because some of these rails that they run on are operated by these railroad companies, so they cannot now go, well, they're actually canceling. They just came out and said they're canceling 3 of their long-distance routes because it's operated on freight rail-owned tracks. It's going to significantly impact inner-city passenger rails and people getting to work.
Amtrak's been broken for a long time.
They have.
They're government subsidized.
Yep.
They're always bailing them out.
Yep.
And if you've ever taken a Amtrak ride,
He has.
I had a plane ticket that would get me. I needed to go to Colorado, so I went to Omaha, Nebraska. And I took a train from there to Golden, Colorado, or maybe it was Granby, Colorado. I can't remember. Anyway, it was like riding a nasty city bus. It was nothing glorious about it, and I remember thinking, I will never do this again. So it's already broken, and they're going to keep throwing money at it, and it's just...
No, I just think it's going to affect a lot of people getting places, especially to work, because I know I used to live in Washington, D.C., and a lot of people would take Amtrak to get to Washington, D.C. from different places. Heck, even Biden used to take it when he was, in the Senate or something, because he would talk about how he would take it. But anyway, so we've talked about all the food shortages and everything, the prices are going up. This is where you touched on briefly, this is affecting our debt as you and I sitting here. And what did you say the stats were of the people now that...
This is really interesting.
People that are having credit card debt. It has reached an all-time high in like 22 years of people, I think, that have credit card debt.
Check this out.
And I think the overall debt is like $824.8 billion in credit card debt during the first quarter of 2022.
Now, these stats come out about 10 days ago. 33% of Americans believe it will take more than 2 years to pay off their credit card debt. 15% of Americans have been in credit card debt for 15 years. Talking about, guys, if you've got credit card debt, do whatever it takes. Sell a kidney.
Get out of debt on the credit cards.
Nearly half of Americans need credit cards to cover essential living expenses now. Half of Americans. This is completely unacceptable. You're going to have to, if your outgo is more than your income, then credit card is your last option. You get to find something, find a side hustle, whatever it may be. Credit cards are not the answer.
Yes.
45% of Americans have taken on more credit card debt during the pandemic. Most Americans have missed at least one credit card payment. 44% of Americans would use credit cards to cover a $2,000 emergency. And most everybody, I forget, it's over 50% of people don't have $500 in a savings account.
True.
We are living in a right now economy where people are just barely hanging on. And that's the thing. So a lot of us preppers are kind of prepared. We've got $500 in a checking account. But some people, if one little thing happens, I got to get a credit card and just put it on the credit card. It's a instant gratification crutch, and it just can't be used. It's predatory lending that people are going to find out the hard way, and you're going to have crappy credit in a high interest rate environment that I just don't see it ending well.
Nope.
It's getting worse as we speak.
It is. And some of these banks, they're anticipating it. They're literally putting money aside, anticipating it. But that's some bad news. But let's talk about some solutions. If somebody was to come to you, well, I'll just tell you personally as a woman, there's things I've cut out on. And people can say, oh, you women don't hate me, but you don't have to have the greatest and the latest in the shoes and the car and the purse and all that. You don't. I buy my jeans off eBay. There are things that you can do to conserve. You can look where you spend groceries. You can look where you buy your stuff. Your kids, once again, you guys are going to hate me, probably don't need all those toys. We were laughing the other day about a kid will play with a box. No, it's somebody that called me. It was actually one of the subscribers that called me. And he said, I won't mention who it is because I don't want to embarrass him or whatever. But he said we would pay so much money at Christmas for the kids to have all these toys. And he said we would turn around and look. And they would be playing with the boxes and building houses and forts and all this stuff. And he said, we just wasted all this money. And in 6 months, he said they were either in a garage sale, in the closet, thrown away. There's so many things that you can do to save, to help reduce your income. And you came up with some great ideas about debt consolidation.
Yeah, if you consolidate your debt on one credit card, sometimes they'll have like a 21-month, no interest, and that'll give you a chance to really catch up.
But you got to be disciplined. Don't go get another credit card if you do that.
Well, that's how you don't get out of the pickle the same way you got in it. So, yeah, try to consolidate the debt and pay it down. Pay more every month. Don't pay the minimum. I know everybody's in a different situation. We use credit cards for everything I purchase. Every single transaction I make, the debit card to your bank account is a stupid idea. It's the dumbest way to pay for anything. You're not protected. You're putting your information out there every time you use it. And if it gets hacked, you're done. If your credit card gets stolen, nothing happens. You say, hey, my credit card got stolen. They say, okay, done. So I use credit cards for everything. We pay them off at the end of the month, and we get money. Thousands of dollars a year to use somebody else's money, and we don't have to worry about getting hacked. Somebody tell me how that's wrong. Now, if you have a problem with credit cards and you cannot control spending, then just stay away from them.
Right.
That's the best thing to do. But somebody in the comments section, please tell me a success story of getting out of credit card debt. Because I would like to see people be free of that. That is a monkey hanging on your back that you've got to get off.
Yep. And another thing, do not go get a home equity loan to pay off your credit cards. I know a woman that did that, and she was not disciplined enough, went got a home equity loan, and then turned around and went got credit cards again. Do not do that because you have a variable interest rate. And I saw a sign. Remember I came home and
wait a minute. That is a cool sign. I don't want to mess you up there.
No, go ahead.
But that might be good for some people.
If you don't go get another credit card.
Yeah.
But here's the problem is a home equity line of credit has a variable rate. It's only good for so long. So if you don't, remember we did it. We did one, but we knew what we were doing.
I'm just saying if you can get a 6% line of credit and your card's 18 or 20%,
I agree.
that would really make sense to do that.
If you're disciplined and see the terms in the home equity loan, because you can only have a short window. Sometimes it's 6 months, sometimes it's less than that, and that interest rate's going to go up. You've got to do your due diligence, and if you're disciplined, you can do it. But don't do it and go get another credit card. But I was driving home the other day, and I saw a sign. And it literally, this isn't from a bank. It was advertising, they call them HELOCs, home equity loan to fund your wedding. And I almost drove off the road. I'm like, seriously? To fund your wedding, to go into debt, the money you don't have, you're going to get home equity.
A lot of people call that predatory lending.
That is.
It's borrowing ignorantly.
Yep.
Just, guys, rein it back. Go through your subscriptions. Try to, if you can, today, I bet most people today could trim $100 a month like that and never miss it. I know we've done that several times, few $100s sometimes. So.
All right. The last thing, still about debt, because we're kind of tying it all together and trying to connect the dots. So startups, they have been borrowing money so easy through these venture capitalists. And now the money is starting to vanish because all these startups, for years aggressively, these venture capitalists were spending hundreds and thousands of dollars, even $1 billion in these startup companies. Well, these startup companies now are trying to compete with these big tech companies, and these big tech companies, their prices are coming down a little bit. They're showing no profit, so they're tightening their belts. And these they're saying, nope, we're not going to lend you guys anymore. They said with interest rates low, venture debt has increased significantly over the past several years. During the startup craze of the past decade or so, there were competitions between different venture capitalists has led to investors to give startups ever larger sums of money in deals with increasingly generous terms. All of a sudden, they have no profit. So these banks that were having, I guess, tighter lending restrictions are starting to get phone calls now. And the guy even quoted, he said, these startup companies are now calling us back. If the market was up and to the right and green, these companies would not be talking.
It puts me in mind of like the gold miners, silver miners, the juniors. Sometimes when the big companies, when they pull back a little bit, the little small ones, the speculative startup ones, will really crash. And then when it goes up, people will want to speculate on the little ones. So I would say this is normal for a market pullback.
It is.
Because everything's pulling back.
It is. They said, though, right now they've overextended, I guess is what it is, because interest rates have been so low that these startup companies have taken on more risk than norm. And now they're having no profits.
Sure, free money.
Yeah, and they're coming to the investors and asking for more. And these investors are saying, no, we're not doing it. Blackstone, though, interestingly enough, Blackstone has just decided they're going to start lending $2 billion, which I think that's pretty new from them when I kind of did a little research on them. As a debt comes with its own cost and risk, startups frequently fail, leaving investors in the lurch. And this is a quote from an investor actually in the Silicon Valley, didn't give his name, but it said that, he said, I've never seen venture debt save a company, because he's been warning people about rising interest rates and other risks. And he said, but I have seen it screw them up.
Oh, yeah, I bet.
So they've kind of, sounds like, gotten a little ahead of themselves with these loans for these startup companies, and now they're failing and leaving these investors in the lurch.
Yeah, well, I mean, everything's pulling back. Everything's, coming back. And there's... only thing we can do is brace. Right. Brace and really try to, because when we do get to the bottom, there really might be some opportunities in these little speculative companies and in these, even in the miners.
True.
That's kind of where I'm looking, because, and I might touch on this. If you made it to the end of the video, there's a lot of times I bring up juniors. I'm not going to talk about one today, but that's what we choose to speculate on. And that's why I talk about it. Right. I get approached all the time to advertise, you name it. I mean, everything. And these, a 15-cent stock, it went up 50% that day. That's pretty wild. So congratulations to everybody that got in on it. But there's nothing nefarious about it. It's actually companies that just want advertisement to their mind that has been crashed by these prices, just like these guys are getting hammered.
Right.
So that's it for the headlines today, guys. Have an awesome, awesome day. We'll see you in the next one. Later.